lived at 302 South Franklin all my life, really, until, well, I should say until I got married. We lived in a house that my great-grandmother really built originally, and she lived with us for as many years so that I can remember till she died. She couldn't speak English, so consequently we spoke a lot of German at home. However, I did learn to speak English by the time I went to school. I spoke some English at home too. We spoke both, but when Grandma was around, we spoke German. So she came from Austria. She and her sister came from Austria she was 16 years old. She was born in 1849. She was 16 years old and she was pregnant. Can you imagine coming over on a boat? Anyway, she always claimed that the Kaiser Wilhelm fathered the child. Good story. It's possible, you know, the young girls worked in their household. Probably kept him happy. Oh, my father's name was George Schuler, and my mother's name was Mary Schuler. And my dad worked at the Guybiani Lumber Company, and finally, later in years, he did figuring for houses that were built or any jobs that they had. And my mother was a wonderful seamstress, and she did a lot of sewing. In those days, you know, we all made do with whatever we had. And my dad really was active. He played ball. I can't remember the name of the team, but he did play ball. That was, of course, in 1920, really. And then he did play bassoon in the 205th Infantry Band.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And the Kitzburgers taught him how to play. And the Company A and the band would go to Camp Ripley every summer for 2 weeks. And that was really unusual, you know, in those days. It was different to have my dad away for 2 weeks. But they also had military balls at the Armory here. And that was a big social event of the year. My mother made herself a beautiful blue Georgette dress. That material isn't around anymore, but it was kind of a sheer material in a flapper style dress. I'll never forget the dress, it was beautiful. And my grandfather lived next door to us. He passed away when I was 9 years old. But my mother's parents lived on North Jefferson Street, and yes, we visited them a lot. We'd walk out there in the evening and visit and walk home again. Nobody had cars. We'd sometimes go down to Kalsa's Corner and with a pail and get some beer for them. We could do that even as children in those days. We led just a normal life. In those days, we didn't have TV. People came and visited. We sat on the benches outside, and the neighbors would gather and visit, and it was a nice time. Not very much stress. We called it kitten ball. Well, now it's softball. And we played progression. You know, we'd pitcher, batter, catcher, and then we'd progress as the batter struck out. And we did that every night in the summertime. When it started getting dark, we'd play Hunt the Greyhound or Tip the Can, and then about 9 o'clock we'd all go home tired and happy. And that was in the summertime. Well, then in the wintertime, where the Jefferson School is now, that was a slough. And that was frozen in the wintertime. And the north part of it was reserved for the DMLC kids, and the south part was reserved for us Catholic kids. You know, we could not speak to each other. But thankfully, that doesn't happen anymore. But then later, the city closed off, this you will never believe, they closed off Center Street from State to Broadway for us to go sled riding. Can you believe that? Of course, there weren't many cars either. Yeah. And then later, they flooded a rink down between Northwestern Depot and Pullman Lumber. And they had a warming house there. And that's where I met Grant. I finally got figure skates.
Yeah.
In fact, I still would like to go out and skate, but my family won't let me. My daughter said, "Mom, if you try that and you break a hip, I'm not taking care of you."
That is a shame, isn't it? That's
I would really love to do it. I really would.
Yeah.
So, yes, we went swimming out to the old dam.
Okay.
I almost drowned.
Really?
Uh-huh.
What happened?
Well, there was a drop-off, and of course, I was pretty nervy, and I went off the drop-off, and a young man by the name of Gerhard Ratke pulled me out. So that's what happened when we were swimming. So, but I still went swimming. The theater was used a lot for plays, and there was a company, a gentleman and his wife, his name was Gene Wurmser, and he would come and bring a group of people to put on a play at Turner Hall, and it was all in German. And when they needed a child, I was 6 years old, and I was this child. I don't know how they found me, but they found me. Because my mother could read German script, and then she taught me whatever I had to say. And I do remember one scene where the villain was in his black outfit and black hat, and he found me, and I was wearing a locket, and he wanted to know who the lady was in the locket, where she was. And I said, "Sie ist im Himmel." And I was crying. It was my mother. She was "Sie ist im Himmel." So, oh my, yeah, that was special every year. They'd have Santa Claus coming in a different way every year. One year, I remember they had Elmer Marx come down from the top of the stage in a sleigh, and I don't know how they did it, but they did it. And I remember one year, Sonny Arndt came in from the back on a horse. Can you believe a horse? And that crowd of children. And they would always have a sack of candy for each child. And they'd have a program, of course. The gym classes would put on the programs.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal.
Yeah.
Really big deal.
Yeah.
I liked going to school.
How were your grades?
Very good, I'll have you know. And this is a funny story. In the 7th grade, I got, they gave out medals. I got the highest ever average medal. And my friend Marge Soffert was ill for a month that year. So this nun said to me, as she gave me the medal, she said, "You know, if Margaret had been here that month, she would have got this medal." That really took everything out of me. I had lots of fun in high school. The fun was playing in the band and the glee club. We were in plays, class plays. Our principal was Harry Dirks at the time, and probably some of the people will remember that, I don't know. But he started some light dances, and once a month in the gym, we'd have a dance after school. and that's how we learned how to dance, really. That was a lot of fun. So, and of course, there were parades during that time too, and I was drum major for we had a drum corps in high school, and that's how I started being a drum major. Well, then I had to be drum major for the band too, and that went on and on into other things. I had a good English teacher, and I had a very good sewing teacher too, Helen Ludwig, and she later went to the University of Minnesota and the University of Michigan. And Grant and I were taking some wedding pictures one time, and the bride had made her own dress, and I helped her dress, of course, and I noticed the way she made the hooks and eyes, sewed the hooks and eyes. I said, my sewing teacher taught me how to do that way. It was with a buttonhole stitch. And she said, well, who was your sewing teacher? I said, Helen Ludwig. Well, she said she was my teacher at the university.
Oh, isn't that funny?
Yeah, small world.
Yeah.
So. Well, that was an accident, really. I was drum major for the Greenhouse Boys Band. Greenhouse Boys Band was 80 boys. Donnie Weigel was just a little shaver when he belonged to the Greenhouse Boys Band. And they were invited to go to a thing called On to Nicollet. St. Paul put this on. And when we got there, Hastings also had their day there. New Ulm and Hastings had the same day. Well, Hastings had two beautiful girls with formals and big bouquets, and here was New Ulm, no queen. So Waldschleuder and Ski Gedstedt were in charge of this contingent that went there, and they said, Lorraine, you're our Miss New Ulm now. So Kagi Neiman was there in his Indian dress. He looked like an Indian. And I was in my drum major outfit, and we had to go up to the microphone and say a few words, and I said, I welcome everybody to come to New Ulm for the Indian Massacre celebration. Everybody cheered, but Hastings didn't have a chance because New Ulm just took over. It was fun. And how we got there, we went there in the M. St. L. boxcars.
Really? Wow. Wow.
So,
and the Greenhouse Boys were part of the...
That was formed by Otto Buck was the owner of the greenhouses here, and he sponsored them because his brother-in-law wanted to start a boys band, and it became very successful. 80 members, you know, and these little kids, 8, 9 years old, they started playing instruments. I don't know how they learned them, but they did. I know Donnie Weigel played the sax, Otis Losey played the sax. Otis Losey was the first drum major they had, and he didn't want to do that anymore, so, because he wanted to play his sax, and so they asked me to be the drum major for them. That's how I got that job.
Well,
that's how I got to be. Oh, and then the Miss New Ulm part, we got, the chamber here got a letter that I was to come to St. Paul, Lowry Hotel, we stayed, and they had all the queens there, and they were going to choose Miss On to Nicollet. Well, here were all these lovely girls, and the judges said, went in another room to decide who would be Miss On to Nicollet. Well, they came back in and they said, you girls are all so lovely and so beautiful. We didn't know who to choose, so we drew the names out of a hat. So the girl who was the Hook'em Cowboy girl, she's the one who got to be Miss On to Nicollet. But all of us got a $10 gift certificate to Powers Department Store.
okay.
That was our prize.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, we had wonderful stores downtown. We had dress shops, we had Vivian's dress shop. Well, starting in the south end, there was Sallett's department store. Vivian's Dress Shop, Pink's Store, the Beehive, people by the name of Oaks owned that, and Raleigh's department store. And in those days, women wore hats a lot. We had a Dottie Dunn hat shop, we had a Mary Corbel hat shop, Anna Rinke had a hat shop. That's where we bought our clothes. And they were all good quality clothes, nice clothes. So,
Were the shoe stores separate?
Shoe stores were all separate. There was Eichton Shoe Store, Hochbar Shoe Store, Lindemann Shoe Store, Stone's, and of course, Sallett's had sold shoes, and so did J.C. Penney.
Okay. Sure.
So, what really happened, I don't know what happened to our downtown. It was really flourishing. The stores were always open Saturday night. Saturday, everybody dressed up and went downtown. That was our entertainment. And we had 3 meat markets. We had small grocery stores. New Ulm was really flourishing downtown, which is too bad we just don't have that kind of shopping anymore. Both of them. Well, there were 3 of them. There was a Schnobreek one next to where Rodney's is now. Yes. And then the one on the corner where Reeser has his investment. And Salford's Meat Market, which is a Kaiserhof now. Yes. And my uncle married a Salford girl, so we shopped there mostly. But nobody ever makes sausage, veal sausage and wieners like Schnobrechts did. That recipe is gone too. And of course we had doctors. The doctors had their offices all on the upper level. And each doctor had their own drugstore that they did business with. If you went to one doctor, you went to his drugstore for your prescriptions. So we had lots of drugstores, we had lots of doctors, and they all did their own surgeries. And they did house calls. It was
very amazing.
Those things aren't happening anymore, of course.
So who would have been your doctor?
Dr. Salford.
Oh, okay.
He was very good doctor. He was a smart man. He graduated from high school in 3 years, went to St. Thomas, got through that in 3 years, and then went to medical school. He was a smart person. So that reminds me of something else. We also had kiddie parades in New Ulm, and now Dr. Charles Hintz and his brother Brace were Fiji Islanders. I can still see them. Their mother painted their bodies black, and they had loincloths, and she had a big, real fuzzy wig on them. They were so cute. We had a big parade. We marched from the 5th North on State Street to 7th South, which was the Union Hospital, down to Minnesota Street, back to 5th North Minnesota Street. And it was a hot day. But nobody complained. And a lady by the name of Irene Fain, who owned the Cat and the Fiddle, her husband made floats. And I mean, they were beautiful floats. And of course, the girls, young girls, would be on the floats. Pretty. It was a big parade, and lots of bands, and everybody marched. And parades were really nice then. What did I do after high school? Well, for 3 months, my folks didn't have money to send me to college. In fact, maybe 2 or 3 people out of my class went to college, really. Not very many. But for 3 months, I worked at Eibner's and had a lot of fun there.
Now, what do you remember about Eibner's?
What do I remember about Eibner's? Well,
you had never visited there now.
Oh, you missed it. They had a big candy counter that they made all the candy. Taffy. They made taffy to dream about, really, and nobody has that recipe. It's really too bad. And they made their own ice cream. They had a soda fountain and a bakery, and restaurant too. I remember Carrie Bianchi was a cook. She was an Eibner daughter, and she was a cook, and I helped her a lot. I learned a lot from her, really. But the first thing I did, she wanted me to fry the liver and bacon. Okay, I had never done that in my life. I didn't know how to cook, really. And their kitchen was in the lower level at that time. And she said, you just fry it, it'll be okay. And the bacon we had to put on big cookie sheets and put them in the oven. Of course, I was so busy frying liver, I forgot about the bacon in the oven, burned the whole thing. But Carrie, she just laughed. She just made some more, and that was okay. So she made ice cream cakes. They called them meringue cakes, and it was ice cream, and in it was cherries and pecans, wonderful, and crunchy stuff of meringue. And then she would cover them with whipped cream and decorate them. They were beautiful cakes. People would order them for special occasions. Yeah. She was a very talented lady. Yeah. The Dakota Hotel,
was that the
which we don't have anymore, sadly. Lola Kirby had the restaurant there, and I'll never forget her sour cream raisin pie. It was just delicious, but she was a wonderful cook. And that really was a little more elegant than Eibner's at the time. Eibner's had booths. They had good food, of course. But it's too bad that the Dakota Hotel is no longer there. It's really sad. It was.
So that was a white tablecloth kind of place.
Right, right.
Okay. With a nice silver in it.
And the dining room was beautifully decorated. So.
Yeah, that is a shame.
Yeah, it's a shame, but it's progress, you know.
Now, if you were just hanging out with friends and wanted to go grab a bite to eat, where would you go?
There was a candy kitchen.
Okay.
And Eibner's, really.
Okay.
There weren't too many places. We didn't have money to do that.
Okay.
You know, really, the younger people didn't do a lot of that.
Yeah.
So, but the candy kitchen was on the corner where Gutentag House is now.
Sure.
Grant and I loved to dance.
And where would you go to do that?
Well, George's Ballroom. Oh, earlier than that, they had dances at the Armory.
Oh, okay.
And we would go there, and at George's Ballroom was opened in 1946. And of course, we went to dances a lot there. And then there was a place called the Colony Club, which is where I think it's called Home Industries now. I'm not sure if that's the right name. That was called Colony Club. And Herb Martinka had that.
Oh, okay.
That we had lots of dances there.
Okay.
Yes, we went to a lot of dances. So
Yeah.
we both like to dance. So. I met him at the skating rink, and I was 14 years old, and my parents were not too happy about that. But that love story lasted for 72 years, so it was all worth it.
Now, why weren't your parents too happy about that?
Because I was too young. I was only
Okay.
14 years old. My goodness.
Okay.
You know, that's too young to have a boyfriend. I was almost 20.
Oh, wow.
Almost. And in those days, you know, no secrets, but Grant went to get the license at the courthouse, and Carl Manderfeld was clerk of court at that time, and he noticed my age, so he called my dad and asked if he knew that I was getting married. Fortunately, my dad knew it, so.
Oh, good.
What?
How did Grant propose, by the way? Or did you just
I
sort of
don't. I don't
decide
think
things?
he really proposed. We just decided to get married.
Okay.
I don't think there was any formal. We had been going together for so long that was just an accepted thing. We were going to get married.
Yeah.
So, and we did. We never told anybody except my folks.
Okay.
That's how it was done in those days.
Yeah. Did you go away for honeymoon?
No, we didn't tell anybody. We couldn't do that. When he did finally decide to tell his folks, though,
Okay.
and Otto said, "Did you have to?" And Ozzy said, "No." Mary wasn't born 4 years later, you know. So then Otto said, "I think you should announce that now, because if Lorraine would get pregnant, then the people would say you moved the date back." And he said, "That would not be very nice." And he spoke from experience.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, he had gone to McPhail School of Music after high school
Yes.
for a summer,
Mm-hmm.
and then he went to McAllister College.
Okay.
And then Otto wanted to buy that house where Gassler had the studio,
Yes.
and Grant was always interested in photography.
Yeah.
So Otto decided that that would be fine for Grant to buy that studio and apprentice under Gassler, which he did. And but then, of course, when the digital and all the color and everything came, people did their own pictures a lot. So he went into something else after that.
Okay. Okay.
The studio was in the house is still there. It was in the south part of that big house on 117 South Minnesota.
Oh, sure.
And that had a big arbor across in the walkway in the front. It was nice. Yeah, I remember the studio. I helped Grant. I did a lot of the color oil paintings.
You did?
Photos. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that where they would take like a picture and then you
Black and
Yeah.
white, and then I would paint it
Color
with
on.
oil.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So.
Where were you living when you first got married then?
Well, there was a little house behind the laundry, and Otto owned that, of course, and we lived there for maybe 5 years.
Okay.
Mary was a baby when we lived there, but that house was moved to South Washington Street
Oh.
in the 900 block.
Ah.
So I go by there once in a while and
Yeah.
have memories.
Yeah.
I was, let's see, I must have been about 23, maybe. And Mary was a baby. And at that time, they were, I think it was KNUJ started a radio station at Turner Hall. Can you believe that? And Grant was an announcer. And he was announcing, and they announced Pearl Harbor, and I was at home with a baby. And that's how I heard about Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
Mary had been born in October, and this was in December, of course.
Yeah.
So that was a terrible thing, really.
Yeah.
He had a childhood injury, and so he was 4F. And then, of course, we had to get into defense work.
Yeah.
And Northwest Airlines had a modification center at Dayton, Ohio. And we went to Dayton. He got a job there, and he was a photographer out there. And there were another couple, Harley Schneider and Ordell, went out there too. And another couple, Norman and Marguerite Grew, also lived out there. It was nice. We lived in a government housing project, and it was fun.
How did you hear about that, or did they?
Oh, I don't know how Grant heard about it. Actually, his first love was music, no matter what. Besides me, of course. But he tried to get into the Navy band, and that's how we knew he would not be in the service.
Okay.
because he couldn't pass the physical.
Yeah.
So then he knew he had to get into defense work, and he was out in Monmouth, New Jersey,
Okay.
and I went out there with my baby, and I was scared to death. I hadn't been out of Minnesota forever, and here we were out there, and he found a nice apartment for us, and one night I spent out there, and all I could see was all these foreign people who I had never seen before in my life. I said, I'm not staying out here, I'm going home. So he came home with me, and he quit the job and he came home with me, and then I don't know how he heard about Northwest, except Linus Glutzbach worked for Northwest, and he was in touch with him, and that's how he got the job at Vandalia, Ohio.
Was it student pictures mostly, weddings?
Oh, weddings, student pictures,
Weddings.
family. Yeah, it was very successful till the change in the digital and color and all that came in. But he got into something. He got into sales then. So
the sales of?
He worked for Nordis American Homes out of Minnesota Lake, and he traveled mostly in Missouri.
Really?
Wow. And I went to work at Kraft. So because he was gone, I might as well work.
Yeah. What did you do at Kraft?
I was in the payroll department.
Okay, sure.
And I really loved my job. I had a good job.
You good with numbers?
I guess so. Well, it's funny. When my supervisor retired, they made me head of the department, but I couldn't be a supervisor because I didn't have a college degree. So, but I didn't care. I enjoyed my job anyway. I met a lot of nice people out there. So, and I still see some of them. Well, he was, yes, the Concord Singers were started by a group of men like Nick Retzloff and Ernst Sperling, and some of the Lutheran men, Wisconsin Synod Lutheran men really started the Concord Singers. And Mr. Halling, our music teacher at school, was their director. And it was quite a group, maybe 25? I can't remember exactly. But Grant joined them in, I think, 1932. And he was a member forever. Grant also played in the municipal band. It wasn't called the municipal band, then it was called the Pioneer Band. He played baritone and French horn. He was a good musician, he loved it. And the Concord Singers, of course, was his life, really. He loved Concord Singers. And he directed them, I think it was for 12 years. And at that time, they sang serious music. And then it evolved into the shtick stuff that they do, you know. And they have done a lot of good for New Ulm, believe me. They really have. And of course, we did go to Germany we went 3 times. They did go 4 times, and England. And they performed wherever they went. And were very well received. Very well. We had 4 children. Mary was the oldest, and she became a nun, and she passed away when she was 28. She had an aneurysm. And Tom became a priest, and he was a priest for 11 years, and he quit the priesthood after 11 years and moved out to the West Coast, where he still lives. Katie lives on a farm near Lafayette, and she works for the DNR. She would be our athlete because she could beat all the boys in the neighborhood shooting hoops. And if they would have had girls athletics in high school here, she would have been a star, because she still is a very good golfer too. And then Angela went to Arizona. She graduated from Arizona State, and she stayed out there and got married. And she's still there, too. That's our family.
Yeah.
I was always very proud of it. You know, it's a beautiful city, really. It's well kept, and the people are friendly. Of course, primarily it was German, but now that's not the case. There's all nationalities are here, really. So it's a nice town. I'm very proud of it.
If you'd grown up in the Twin Cities, you'd have been a different person, though, wouldn't you?
I think I would have been, probably. So we were happy, and we had, you know, everybody has ups and downs. Grandma Oswald always said it, life is full of ups and downs. For every up, there's a down. For every down, there's an up. And that's true. Well, I don't know. This is really my memories of New Ulm. And in a month, my family will celebrate my 95th birthday. And I figure one of these days I'm going to have to look up to those pearly gates. And I hope when I'm ready to do that, the Lord will open the gate and open his arms and say, "Welcome."